Hello, everyone. Welcome to my office, to my room. October. Can't think if I've done one of these already this month or not. But welcome to my YouTube channel. I hope this Friday is treating you very well. Hope everyone that you like and love is safe in these rather strange times. Good to have you here. Sorry, I haven't done one. I didn't do one last week. Likewise on my Facebook page, but it is something I am. It was a bit of a shock. All of the games suddenly we were bang on with midweek games and whatnot. So welcome and thank you for your patience. And I hope we're going to have a good 20 minutes or so. Just to explain, 20 minutes live Q&A. We will get there. Yes, we'll get started at 5:05. I've decided 5:05. We'll crack on with the Q&A. Post in the comments, ask anything you want to, say anything you want to. It's absolutely fine. It doesn't even have to be about football, but obviously probably fits in a bit more directly. Although we had a great question about tea the last time I did one of these on here. So always happy to have questions about tea. I'm fine. Thanks for asking. No particular reason other than I haven't styled my hair this morning and I am in need of a beard trim. So I hope you'll forgive me for that. But I figured I haven't got the time to, I've got to leave for Bristol soon. I haven't got the time to sort out my hair right now. So I stuck on a beanie, to which my wife said, you know, this is important. You're portraying the image of the family here. You look ridiculous, but you know, the beanie stayed. She did help, put it in exactly the right place on my forehead. So I love my wife and thank you, Fliss, for sorting out my hat. So yeah, get your questions and comments in. Obviously, as is tradition, I haven't forgotten, I don't think. Sing along, everyone. Oh, I've forgotten it. Oh, I really have. God, that was terrible. Sorry. But there you go. You got the gist of it. And, you know, we can't sing it in Stadia at the moment, can we? So you can just have to make do with singing it along to my botched version on my melodica. But, you know, what more do you want on a Friday evening? So, yeah, keep those questions coming in, will you? Bit of breaking news by the looks of things. So let me just address this. Now, I imagine you will have seen... would have seen Delia Smith's open letter to Boris Johnson yesterday. I think it was yesterday. It was on my day off, but that went live. So I had a read of that. Now, I haven't seen this, so let me just bring you breaking news, if I may. The club have issued a statement. It's on their website, dated today, following the open letter from Delia Smith. Norwich City have issued the below statement. All at Norwich City are becoming increasingly disappointed and frustrated with the government's lack of support for football and its communities. The government has openly spoken about its desire to support the hospitality, leisure and entertainment industries, but in recent months has done very little to support football clubs. Whilst other areas of society have been opened up in order to protect the economy, it's disappointing, again, that there has been no further discussion on a roadmap for supporters returning to stadia or the financial impact on an industry that employs tens of thousands of people across the country. I mean, what I would add there is there's probably not many industries that are open, but the actual one of the main sources of income, as in fans, is not permitted. Like, you know, shows didn't keep going on when no one was allowed in theatres. So it's interesting. All at Norwich City were incredibly proud of the club's successful pilot fixture against Preston. The event resulted in months of planning from staff and local authorities, and the 1,000 supporters attended with positive feedback was overwhelming. Again, I'd probably add, we have no idea what the actual COVID reaction from that event was. It was brilliant, but I don't know if anyone actually tracked whether there was any cases as a result of the day. But you know, that's just me being a journalist. The club has worked tirelessly on an agreement and sign off with both EFL and the Safety Advisory Group that would have allowed for 8,000 fans to attend Carrow Road. Plans obviously curtailed by the government's subsequent decision. So it's quite a long statement. And we continue to see people enjoying the cinema, theatre and arts. Continued inconsistent approach across the entertainment industry is even more disheartening when we have previously seen supporters back in stadiums around Europe and hear of their clear plans and discussions for wider support for the months ahead. I mean, government being rubbish, shocker, but there we go. The club continues to do all it can to engage with its supporters, maintain its revenue streams, and would urge the government to reconsider the current measures in place to allow our passionate supporters to watch their team in safety and with respect for the guidelines. Should supporters be categorically unable to return to stadiums because of further restrictions, we ask that the government addresses the urgent need for a clear plan of support for all clubs from the Premier League down through the divisions. Clubs are the lifeblood of many communities, and we fear that unless sufficient support is given, many clubs may not exist in months and years to come. Norwich continue to follow the wider government protocols and advice to ensure that its supporters remain safe and secure. The club would never jeopardise the health and safety of its supporters in any way, and maintain strict standards and protocols across both its Carrow Road and Lotus training centre sites, which is very true, because we're still not allowed in the training ground under any means not to watch the under-23s play or anything. So it's still a red zone in terms of the training ground. Obviously, I was at Carrow Road for the beam back of the game taking place a couple of yards outside for the Wickham game, which is a surreal experience. And you have to say the contradiction of having people allowed indoors in small tables to watch a game on the TV screen that's taking place outside doesn't make any sense, given all of the various restrictions in place elsewhere. I think there is a debate to be had over whether theatres and cinemas should be open at the moment, because they are more contagious environments for COVID than an open air stadium. So while they're open, then the debate has to go on about what happens inside football grounds as well. I do feel that in Norfolk, we have been fortunate in a lot of ways, that the seriousness of the issue has been worse elsewhere. I think there's a degree of probably being slightly sheltered from it here, to be brutally honest. So I can understand why, not making football fans, allowing football fans into stadia in terms of a perception issue is a real issue across the country, when, in several parts of the country, no one can go and even see their families at the moment. So it's a really horrible, contradictory situation. A strongly worded statement there from Norwich. I think their cards are laid bare for everyone to know. I think it's worth picking up the penultimate should supporters be categorically unable to return to stadiums because of further restrictions, we ask that the government addresses the urgent need for a clear plan for support for all clubs from the Premier League down through the divisions, which is basically, in my mind, saying don't rely on the Premier League to bail everyone out. And I think the government stance is like, well, the EFL has said it'll all be fine, so don't worry about it, which is, sums up the government really. But there we go. What is obviously also clear is that football clubs are going to be in a serious predicament the longer there aren't any favour. People just assume things are just going to carry on because football's carrying on. It's categorically not going to happen. At some point, these football clubs are going to go pop. If we're still in this situation come February and March, pop. And I think Stuart Webber has gone on record quite vehemently saying we need to protect football clubs in general. So I think Norwich have tried to take a lead across all of it there. So there we go. I'm keen to know your thoughts on that, because it's obviously a very complex issue. And it's quite an emotive issue, I think, for a lot of people. But there we go. That's literally just broken now. So apologies for just holding off on the Q&A just so I could read you that. So there you go. Get your questions and comments in, because we'll rattle through as many of them as possible. But of course, we'll also be talking about football too. Thank you for getting in touch. Get over to The Athletic. If you haven't read my Tim Krul interview from Tuesday, it was brilliant. It was so lovely to speak to him. Really enjoyable. First time I've spoken to him properly in terms of sitting down with him. We went through his best saves. Loads of fun. And lots of stuff he addressed. So I hope you read that. Let us know what you thought of it if you did. Let's get on with some questions then, shall we? It is coming up to 5:10. Let's go. Simon Copperwheat. Hello there, Simon. Hope you're very well on this Friday afternoon. With various parts of the country going into tighter lockdown, how do you see this affecting Norwich's away fixtures? Well, this is a great question, and I have no idea. What I have to say is I think bizarrely, there are no public at the obviously at the games. The resources are quite tightly managed and restricted in terms of numbers. The teams traveling are in bubbles, protective bubbles themselves, so there probably is no real issue there. It might change if hotels are not open at all, but actually because hotels have reopened, I would imagine now, regardless of the restrictions, there will probably be a degree of trying to manage them so they stay open, I'm guessing, or there'll be somewhere where the clubs can go. That's probably one of the biggest issues. So the travel might be one of the problems, but generally I don't think there'll be any issue with the teams traveling about because they're in a kind of protected bubble per se. We're probably quite similar in that we don't travel by public transport to get to these games. We travel in our own cars, we go and then we come out again in an amber zone. So we're also quite separate as well. So I don't really see, and I've short of lots of players all over the place testing positive and having to self-isolate, decimating the fixture lists. That's probably the real danger point. But in terms of things not carrying on and maybe the fixtures coming, other than that, I don't think they envisage an actual shutting down of football this season. And I actually think a lot of people are, whether it's right or wrong, desperate to stop it happening because it will open the door, certainly in Premier League level, to vast amounts of rebate again. And there may already be a rebate because there are going to be no fans in stadia, but I think people are worried about that and then the financial impact. And it's what just factoring into the statement that Norwich have just released. Premier League clubs have a lot of money. They're given a lot of money, but they spend a lot of money. In fact, most of them spend a huge amount more. Most of them spend in excess of what they get, more than most Championship clubs spend in the first place. So the idea that the Premier League can bail out football, I don't think that really works because they're in a tight spot themselves and they've got a lot to think about. And, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of the Premier League, but that is the reality of the situation. So, and therefore, in terms of Norwich's away fixtures, just to bring it right into Norwich, I don't see it really affecting anything unless Norwich get in a situation where they have lots of positive tests. And the tricky thing there is Norwich are not at the moment being tested on a regular basis. It's a question of if someone gets symptoms, they get tested, just like us, basically. So whereas in the Premier League, it was regular testing twice a week. And I think that's now only once a week. If those rules change, then obviously you start probably increasing the likelihood of picking up positive tests, which probably is a good thing because it's more precautionary, but a bad thing because it increases the likelihood. Also, I don't know if the Championship can afford to pay for regular testing. So at the moment, and again, that factors into the whole money issue. If you want to keep playing football, you're going to have to pay for the testing to keep protecting yourselves if it needs to happen. How do you pay for that? Premier League clubs can do that because they do have that finance, but it's different in the Championship. So cases is probably the biggest issue rather than the actual local restrictions, I would say, at the moment. But it's a horrendous situation, of course, and I think we're all thinking of each other in these times, aren't we? Jerry, hello there. Thank you. Yeah, I'm very well, thank you very much. We're all good here. Sorensen did a great job as a last-minute left-back at Brentford. He certainly did. Read my piece on that, and also looking slightly ahead as well. It's definitely worth a read. Do you think he will take Kantia's place this weekend, or will there be another plan? And Steve Campbell kind of follows on from that. Who will replace Xavi? Not fair to expect Sorensen to step in again at left back, surely? Question mark. Or is that a leading question? I don't know. Not quite. Well, so we know that Xavi Kantia is out. He had a scan. I think it was on Wednesday over his sort of quad hip flexor injury. There's no blood on the injury, which I think is the determining factor that would have made it a longer spell out. So that's good news. And there's a hope that he might actually be available for Millwall on Tuesday night. But, you know, if he's not, he's not. I don't get the impression Sorensen, it's a tricky one because Sorensen did do well, but as you said, it was quite a last minute involvement. So I can see Barley Mumba, I think, coming in. He's been doing well in training. Everyone seems quite impressed with him. That's obviously quite a big thing to do to bring him in, but he's probably a more natural left back. And also you have to appreciate now that Bristol City have looked at Jacob and they may well have identified something that Brentford didn't do, which was actually going on the outside of him might be quite a good idea because Mbeumo didn't do that. He always cut inside, which kind of played into the fact that Jacob is a central midfielder effectively, or centre back, and is probably more comfortable heading towards goal in central than being taken on around the outside. So I don't really think there's an issue now that they've had a bit of time to work on it. You could start Barley Mumba at right back where he is comfortable and shift Max along to left back, because to be honest, Max is going to be more comfortable at left back than if you maybe throw Barley Mumba in for his Championship debut in an unfamiliar position, whereas Max has played left back before and done perfectly fine. And then you're leaving Barley to adjust to that role on his own. There is an option that Norwich finish with the team that then the shape that they ended on Tuesday night. Sorry, the Norwich start with the shape they ended with a three at the back basically, and Jacob Sorensen playing as the right side of those three, which did look quite tight. But I just don't see Daniel starting with it. I think he could go to it at some point if needed during the game, which he has done for several weeks. But I think my money would probably be on Barley Mumba right back, Max Aaron's left back, and then he can still keep Rupp in the middle. Because really, if you moved Rupp out, you don't. There's a point in moving Rupp to right back and then Max to left back, because then you've got another hole in the middle. But he might say Kenny McLean come in and away we go. So, and then he's got a more experienced side at least. Excuse me. So we'll see. It's an interesting one. That's a difficult one to call, actually. At least then you've got fewer players. And Lucas Rupp is probably playing well enough to adjust to it at the moment. But Bristol City are a good side. They've got some really good attacking players, and they will definitely be looking to exploit that weakness down the Norwich left. I think it would probably be a key thing to look out for tomorrow. That was Jerry and Steve. Thank you, Steve. Andy Pegg, earlier subs this season as a result of chasing the game, or is Daniel Farke getting more adventurous? Well, I mean, adventurous probably isn't quite the word I'd use. I do think it was something that that Daniel is aware of and looked at maybe not last season. I mean, even in the championship winning season, the substitutions became very routine. They didn't really affect a game that often. It was more like, we're winning, let's make 3 substitutions in the last 5 minutes to wind down the clock, which would be quite annoying. I think so I think he's conscious of it, and I think he's just trying to get the balance right of it at the moment. But he did make all 3 quite early. He knew, and so did Shemiswaf Poeta, that he was coming on about 5 minutes before halftime, that he would then come on at halftime. So I think there's definitely that viewpoint, and there is a squad to do it, and he injuries will play a part in that as well. I think there will be quite a demand on Daniel Farke to change it around, and also and a few managers have said this before. There aren't the tactical demands in the Championship compared to the Premier League. It is a bit more straightforward. You get complicated games, obviously, and scenarios, and maybe issues on the pitch, but generally, I get the impression that the Championship is a little bit more straightforward. So that should give Daniel freedom to do that, and I think he's feeling that at the start of the season. I'm sensing that from him. Excuse me, this isn't looking good, is it? So there we go. It's all this talking. I've been fine all day. Daniel, hello Daniel, hope you're well. Norwich's decision to go into the congested season with 1 left back and 3 centre backs already starting to look even more strange? ? Well, I think it depends how you view it, really. I think Norwich having, there was probably an expectation at the start of the season. No, I bought into that. The more players you had, the more Norwich should be in the Championship with a brilliant flowing squad of all these players and all these options. And I have a feeling that certainly Stuart Webber and Daniel Farke, maybe more Stuart Webber, looked at it and it's like, this is going to be too big a squad to keep everyone happy. Now, whether they're the right options and the right places to have thinned it out a little bit is questionable, possibly, but you can't really affect who then wants to go and who comes up in terms of options. I think it's a shame that Sam McCallum has gone out on loan to Coventry. I think he is starting to play a bit more now. In fact, exertion. Heavy exertion. Also mentions it. Have to admit, it would be nice to have Sam McCallum right now. I mean, I kind of agree. That's a hard balance because you're clearly sending him out to get Championship games. Now, I think he is playing a bit more now. I was a bit worried that he wasn't going to get much game time, but he does seem to be establishing himself. I'll have to have a proper check of that with Sam. But as long as he's getting games at Coventry, then at least it validates a reason for him being there, say, until January. But obviously, and so yeah, you could throw him on for the odd game here. But that's not quite the same as maybe getting 10 to 15 to 20 of your first games at Championship levels. So it's a tricky one. I think Norwich do like to keep it quite tight in terms of their squad, so I can understand why they've done it. Maybe in this scenario, going for the Championship, they really want promotion. They have the resources to have so many players out on loan. It's probably a risk. But as I said, it's a judgment call where they'll with hindsight, we'll be able to judge them on it, and they're judging it in terms of the other options they've got. So although it all looked a bit last ditch, I mean, Jacob Sorensen is a very good player, and I guess they've looked at it and thought, if we need to throw him in there, we can throw him in there, even in that situation. And then he did very well. We'll see maybe tomorrow, with Barley coming in and Max and then Lucas, or however that all figures out. If that is enough, if Christoph is back in, which does sound like he's pretty much there now, then you do have the option to move Ben Gibson over to left back, and at least you've got a centre back to then bring in. So, there is that flexibility there. So I feel like there are a lot of different options, but it involves moving people around. And I suppose that's something that actually Daniel doesn't really like doing. So I think Daniel would have rather had all the options himself. But I think that call kind of got made by Stuart Webber for maybe a longer term view. So it depends how longer term your view is, really. I don't know if that will be, if Norwich finished fourth and miss out on promotion, then that probably is a question mark, isn't it? But clearly they felt they needed to take that risk, and that's probably where it's ended up. So I hope that sort of answers it. Daniel. Jamie Drew. Hello, Jamie. We're by far the best footballing side in this division from what I've seen so far. However, do you think we lack cutting edge in the final third? That's a great question, Jamie. Not really, no. What I think they lack is a ruthlessness. I've written a big old bit on expected goals on target. They are still basically creating the same quality of chances they were creating 2 years ago. So far, it's a small sample size, but it's really promising. The quality of what they're doing with that chance hasn't been quite as high as it was, and the conversion of the chance has been worse. So I don't think they are. I think the problem is they're not really taking the chances as clinically as they were 2 seasons ago, which probably a lot factors into Teemu Pukki, because he was so on it 2 years ago, and that's quite a big act to repeat, whoever it is. Emi Buendia hasn't scored for a long period of time, and also we're yet to see anyone really step forward from the attacking three in the way that Marco Stiepermann did. Todd hasn't done that yet. Nell's obviously now injured. We're still adjusting to what Poeta has to offer. Kieran Dowell's got injured, of course, as well. And although Mario's done really well, he's done that from the bench, and hasn't done that in a starting role or in 10 or in the left. So that area, those three behind the striker were kind of the issue that just wedged a massive burden on Teemu's shoulders last season, and not really seeing that click this season. That's what I would like to see. Those goals need to come, and they are coming from sort of everywhere, but it's a bit sporadically. And what you want to see is a consistent output of goals from certain areas. So I don't think that, I actually think they're creating really good chances. I just don't think they're taking them. So I think it's being clinical. It's not that they're not. Well, I suppose, I mean, is that the cutting edge? I suppose the cutting edge is coming in the converting the chance, not necessarily the creating it. I hope that makes sense. Stephen Pass, hello. And you noticed Rob Nizet has been missing from the under-23s lately. I noticed that today, this lunchtime. Do you know whether he's been training with the first team as left back cover or just dropped or injured? Oh, you know what? I looked at it. I haven't checked. I did. Part of me thought, oh, maybe he's got a knock. I didn't see when he didn't feature. I would assume he's got a knock if he didn't also feature, say, at the weekend or the week before, because they wouldn't. I'd be surprised if they'd have pulled him out for Xavi being slightly tight. And also, no one has mentioned him, and I feel that there's a lot of talk about Barley Mumba and Max Aaron. So I don't know. My gut feeling tells me he might have a knock, and that's why he's not featuring. So I wouldn't get too excited, is what I would say, because I think it will be Barley Mumba. And also Daniel Farker only really mentioned Barley Mumba today as well. So I think Norwich will work it with the options they've got already. Rob has done well. He's still quite young, though, and still looks quite raw to me. So I would be surprised if that was why he wasn't featuring, but we'll see. And a second one from you, Stephen. Thank you. If you, as someone who presumably never has to pay it, were put in charge of the pricing for iFollow, what would you charge per match month? Probably $5 per match. I think a $5 per match sounds about right. if you think about The Athletic is, generally about a £5 a month for a subscription, and you get such a huge amount of quality per month. Like Netflix is what, £7-8 a month. I think even a £5 per month is a lot if you're playing, 8 games a month, isn't it? So, and of course, season ticket holders at Norwich are getting it for free. I mean, £15 a game in the Premier League for pay-per-view is just is a disgrace. And I think Norwich fans can count themselves quite lucky they're not even involved in that discussion this year, to be honest. So that's what I would say. I mean, it's kind of interesting watching everyone desperately avoid claiming any credit for the prices that are being set in terms of the Premier League pay-per-view. I think EFL set the iFollow amount. So that's probably what I would say. But, at the moment, it's also you've got TV revenue and then iFollow. That's basically it for supporters for clubs to generate revenue. So I suppose there's a little bit of a caveat there maybe for EFL clubs, but I don't think the figures are huge with it. And that's a debate for all fans. I think everyone sort of looked at it thinking, well, you'd have thought there'd be more people watching this stuff live if they couldn't actually go to the games, but I don't know if they really are. So there we go. Let's have, and a third one, Stephen, well done. You noted that Tony Springett was highly rated. He just signed a new deal. Do you know much about him? Did he sign a new deal? I must have missed that. Yeah, he's done well. He is very highly rated. He's a lively player. He's been around for a few years, and I think they've always liked the look of him. He looks quite raw. He's quite, as I say, he's playing age groups up from his age. So you can see that he's kind of sort of got time on his side almost. It's probably the best way to put it. But I like what I've seen of him. Long way to go for him to get beyond and into first team contention, obviously. But he's ticking on quite nicely, I think. So all on him now. To do that. I did miss that he'd signed a new deal though, so I might have to check that out. But thanks for flagging up. Is that on the club website? Let me know. That'd be good. That'd be good, Stephen. You're letting me know here, telling me the information, which is handy. Ramwolf, hello. Sorensen seems one of the reasons we felt we could let Tim Closer go to Basel. Yeah, I would definitely argue that. And to be honest, I did say that at the time, but people didn't really want to hear it. Likewise, Alex Tetty playing centre back, which I know people don't want to hear, but I think there is a suggestion. I mean, I've only seen Alex Tetty play centre back in pre-season when he looked absolutely fine, to be honest, but it was pre-season, and then the Premier League where it was never ever going to be okay because Alex Tetty as a centre back against Neil Mopai, I don't really want to see that, and Alex probably doesn't want to do that. Championship level in the right games, I think Alex would be fine, and also I think there is that back three option which we will see from the start at some point when it really suits. So yeah, and I guess with supporters, they want to see things play out because they're making their judgments on what they see with their eyes constantly, and that's what you want to see. You want to see what then pans out to judge it again yourself. So you can kind of understand that. Keep them coming in last few minutes because we've been going a while, and I'm going to try and wrap up soon after 5:30, not 7:30. Don't worry. So keep them coming in. We'll rattle through some last ones, shall we? A few more minutes. Ramwolf Roop seems to be a key to our midfield at the moment. Yes, the way he's breaking through lines is brilliant. He's using the ball really well. He doesn't give it away in the sloppy nature. He looks a different player, and he's doing brilliantly well. I'm so chuffed with how good he looks because he's so dynamic compared to Tom Tribal and Moritz Leitner used to do everything with the ball, and Tom could really break the lines with his passing, and obviously Mo was like metronomic. And would feed balls further forward as well. But Lucas can kind of dribble it and drive it forward himself, which I think territorially is much more useful when you then have other players who have got the ability to pick passes better as well. But not to say Lucas can't pick a pass, because he can. I don't think we're going to see many goals from him, but I think he's proving really, really useful. Maybe the only issue will be if they come up against bigger sides, because neither him nor Ollie Skip are particularly tall. So that might be something that crops up in future. We'll see. Exertion, Stiepermann at left back. Wow, we haven't seen that for a couple of years. But hey, stranger things have happened. Or let's hope not, though. Let's hope we've done with those. Paul Goodall, do you see Todd starting? That's a great question. Yeah, that's I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I think Poeta has a shout for starting because I think there's a different dynamic with his pace, especially away from home. I thought Todd was poor on Tuesday night. I think a lot of what Daniel was saying about taking 2 touches which would still speed up the play compared to a 1 touch. And there were a couple of times when Todd just gave the ball away, and it was just a really lackadaisical performance, really, and really kind of careless with the ball. Which, Todd's been out a while. There's plenty to come. He showed against Birmingham what he can do when he's in the right positions and he's on it. So that's what we need to see at that level. And a lot's going to rely on his confidence and how he sort of keeps his inner belief. So I wouldn't have an issue with Todd starting if it means he can go and set a few things right. It probably depends on his mindset and where his head's at and how he's feeling. And I think Daniel does have options. And, Pajeta or Steve Stiepermann's back. He could be an option at 10. You can move Mario across. Possibly, I can see Mario maybe staying at 10. There's a few options there. So we'll see. Probably not. I think it's less likely. I think Todd will be on the bench. It's probably more likely, but wouldn't have any issue if he did start. Adam Brighty. Hello, Adam. Have you heard more about Project Big Picture, a new incarnation of it? Rick Parry seems to think the original plan isn't dead in the water. Well, Rick Parry does talk a lot. I think if they're going to come up with anything, they'll have to come up with it together. So I think in terms of what Project Big Picture is in itself, I think that you can scrub off. It'll be about working out how things look going forward. But I honestly think that the current situation will put more pressure on what is going on at the moment, and clubs trying to survive that. Maybe rather than looking at what things look like in 2 or 3 years' time. But I think there's clearly a desire to look at what English football is going to evolve into. And if we do lose football clubs, then that's going to be an issue, isn't it? Alex Bainham, hello. What are the chances of recalling Sam in January? Well, it's a possibility. I don't think Norwich like doing it. And also, it's the same question, really, isn't it? If Xavi is exactly as you said there, if he's got like 15 championship games, or if he's not playing almost, you might bring him back, because then what's the point? You might as well train at Norwich. If Xavi picks up a nastier injury, which God, heaven forbid he doesn't, then you need Sam. So, the curiosity for me is Sam is playing as a wing back, which, you kind of want Sam to establish himself as a left back or work out what that is for Norwich, really, because that's what he's more likely to play here. So it's a tricky one with Sam. I'm not really sure at the moment how that's going to pan out. We'll have to see. And do I fancy having a word with Matt Slater about parachute payments? Yeah, he thinks they're the devil. I don't think Matt needs to have a word with me. I don't think I'd change his mind either, to be honest. But to me, if parachute payments were the be all and end all, you would not see about 1 in 10 teams relegated from the Premier League promoted back in a season or two from getting relegated. I just don't. I think all they do is provide a cushion for what is a stupid gap between the two divisions, especially if you don't have a rich owner throwing loads of money at it or cushioning your blow when you come down. So I don't really see them as I think they're just an excuse for existing championship clubs maybe to complain about their lack of success themselves, because Norwich went up the year after their parachute payments stopped. I don't need to have a word with Matt about it. I'm sure we'll have a chat one day when we're all allowed to get back together again. Ramwolf, why do you think Ballymumba stayed and Sam McCullum went back out? I think Norwich felt they had more options at left back cover and that they needed Barley at right, or in fact that Barley was ahead of Sam, which I actually think in the cup game against Luton was proven. I thought Barley was excellent in that game, and I thought Sam looked a little bit lost. And I can understand Sam needing a few more games, or maybe Daniel feeling he's not quite ready yet, whereas Barley has impressed when he's been around the group, which is I think why there's a good chance we might see Barley tomorrow, because I think they've genuinely looked at him and thought, yeah, you're doing well. So that's how I see that. Ed Ivans, I think it's a bad idea to keep moving players around. Do you think Ben Gibson and Grant Hanley will be a good pairing? Well, maybe I'll answer that question after the weekend. But I think what you have to bear in mind is they haven't played together very long in the context of things. And actually, I think they're defending generally quite well a lot of the time. But, there was the goal against Wickham. There was the penalty shout. There were probably 1 or 2 set pieces against Wickham, and then there was obviously the goal and another couple of issues against Brentford. So there are issues besides the overall good play. I would say they're worth persevering with at the moment. But when, which he is, Christoph Zimmermann is back fit, that does put the pressure on them both to perform. Absolutely, no doubt. Nathan, what are you doing for Halloween? When is that? Saturday night. You know what? I'm staying in Bristol. I'm looking forward to it. It's my wife's birthday coming up, so I think we're going to try and do something, that is legal at the moment, and hopefully have a lovely time. So there we go. And my boys, I don't think they sorted out a pumpkin. Hopefully they'll do that tomorrow. Although I'll miss that because I'm obviously in Brizzle. Nick Dye, 3-4-2-1 seems like a formation that would suit Norwich. Aarons and Poeta as wing backs, a more solid defence, and Emmy and Todd playing closer to Timu. Thoughts? I like it. Norwich have finished, so that is effectively that's a variation. So Norwich finished with a 3-4-1-2. So they had Emmy in the one behind Jordan, Hugel, and Timu Pukki. I think Daniel does like switching to that formation quite a lot mid-game, especially if they're chasing it. So I can see that. I just think it's probably a bit too attacking for him to start with it. But I like it. And I always remember a couple of, like 3 seasons ago when they looked quite tight with 3 at the back. I think that's why I've always kind of regularly gone back to asking Daniel about playing 3 at the back. I like it. And I would agree with you. I think it does suit. But I think Daniel quite likes the balance of the 4-2-3-1 from the outset. Also, it was as someone at Norwich pointed out to me, it was 4-4-2 in recent weeks. Of course, when Hugel and Pukki were both starting, I still had it in a 4-2-3-1 in my head because I had Timu playing slightly deeper, but it was a 4-4-2 really. Last few questions, and then I'm signing off. Ramwolf again, do you think moves by the top 6 to give themselves more power, money, and say in how the game is run will lead to any fan movement backlash? Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't known what was happening in Germany. Potentially, again, I think everyone at the moment feels like they've got more on their plate. And also they're not at games, so it's very hard to have a connection. So possibly, but I'd like to think that maybe the football clubs themselves will make sure that something more even happens. And, Germany is held up as a sort of a prime example of having fan involvement in clubs and of more equality. So if there were issues there with that I would imagine will get picked up here because it's sometimes seen as that sort of role model for English clubs in many ways. Matt, forgive you if you've touched on this already. How close do you think Norwich are to reaching what they are surely capable of? The underlying stats might suggest we are close to winning games more comfortably. Yes. I think I was quite guarded earlier on in the season. What I liked from the Brentford game, I didn't think they were that bad. I think they can play better, but I think they did create good chances. I thought they moved the ball really well before they conceded the goal. So primarily they've got to tighten up at the back. But what I'm seeing now is that they are actually what I liked was they really got at Brentford and they looked really comfortable and they look good. So what I'm now seeing is that they're playing at a level that looks above their opponents, depending on where their opponent's level is. So I can see that there's motivation there, and I can see that there are gears, and there are gears that they've got. And if you know that they've always got gears, then you can kind of judge the quality that they've got to sort of slip into them. And that makes me much more confident about what they've got going forwards. As long as they avoid too many injuries in the same areas, they've got the squad, they've got the knowledge of having done it before, the experience, they've got the belief in what they can do. And I think they're just starting to shed the baggage of last season as well, because they're coming from behind to pick up points now. It's no real issue. You can see that they feel strong at the end of games. So yeah, I think there's one or two things where when they click, they will start winning. And also, and I've said it before, the Championship is such a level below the Premier League. So Brentford were very good, but they had quite a few shortcomings last night. They're the best side I think Norwich have played. I thought they were better than Bournemouth, although Bournemouth had more control, and Bournemouth will probably finish above Brentford. I think it will be really tough to see. And like Reading, I haven't seen Reading properly yet, so we'll see how things go. But I like a lot of what I've seen from Norwich, and a lot of it will be up here and how they keep themselves ticking over and just don't get complacent, which I still think was an issue, or a part of the issue against Wickham. Stephen Pass, absolutely my pleasure. Matt, also, if you were brave enough to predict which player come the end of the season will we look at as our most important? Oh, you know what? I'm not going to predict that because I don't know. We've got like 38 games. Anything could happen. What I will say is I watched the City View from Brentford on the club's official YouTube channel. If you haven't watched it, you should watch it. And you could see from them waiting in the tunnel to leave, what struck me, Tim Krul, the man was just talking. He was making his views felt, saying what needed to be said. And I just thought, you are so important to this side right now. Read my Tim Krul interview. But so yeah, I think Tim Krul is hugely important to this side at the moment. Oh dear. Dry throat, talking a lot. Simon Copperwheat, finally. The beanie's a good look. Well, don't think I'll ever wear it again, but I appreciate that. I'll try and sort my hair out. And Benjamin Yates, is Poeta being underused at the moment? He looked really good in his first game. Underused. I mean, I still feel like he's adjusting to it, and I still think he's learning, which I think is probably why you're not seeing him a lot, because they're controlling that and what he can do in training, and hopefully just bringing him into what he needs to do on more regularly. I think he's looking a bit more controlled. Initially, in his first games, he was very enthusiastic, but he was literally making the runs that other players were making at the same time, or making their runs for them, which was just really awkward. So he is raw. You can see him run the ball out of play or take a heavy touch. You know, there is a rawness to his game. I don't think Norwich are quite utilising his pace best at the moment. I think they need to work on that. And obviously, he is going to be away for the international break coming up in November, which is a shame. But I think he's one player who I sort of sit there and think, okay, if you keep your fitness and keep ticking on, let's see where you are come the start of next year, because I think he could be a really important player with what he offers, especially when you've then got a Nell fit as well, which would be great. And with that, we're done. Thank you so much for all your questions. It's much appreciated, and your time. That was a bonus epic length. I'm off to Bristol later. You can watch the game live on Sky, I think. So please do make sure you check in theathletic.co.uk, because we'll have our live match day blog, so you can get involved in there and talk amongst yourselves, and I'll pop in as well. And of course, I'll be writing various pieces. I finished one interview this afternoon, actually, which should be going up next week. So keep an eye out for that. As Nick Dye says, rest in peace, Nobby Stiles, English football legend. I will sign off with this. I'll try and get it right first time this time. Sing along. One note wrong. There has been a few weeks. Thank you so much, as always. Jerry, F1 back at Imola. Can you believe it? That's going to be one hell of a weekend. That. Enjoy the F1. Hopefully we enjoy the football. Another victory at Bristol. That would be nice. It's been quite a good run at Bristol City, so we'll see how it pans out. Either way, you will enjoy it. I'll be there. Follow me on Twitter. Spread the word. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And have a wonderful weekend, everyone. I will see you very soon. Thanks for all your questions and comments. And we'll do it again next week. Next Friday.